Welcome to the 1987 Pro National video. In store for you is 1 hour and 40 minutes of classic racing by Rick Johnson, multi-champion Bob Hanna, Suzuki's new teammate Johnny O'Mara, Kawasaki's Ron Lechien and Jeff Ward, this video was filmed from the beautiful locations of Southwick, Massachusetts and Mount Morris, Pennsylvania. We will be looking at America's top riders in action, their riding techniques, including their strengths and weaknesses. So get ready for some great racing as these riders check out the track, tune their suspension, and practice their starts. Back in the pits, Roger DeCoster and scores of mechanics check, clean, and adjust their finely tuned factory specials. In the background here, you can see Mickey Diamond cleaning and checking his gear, getting ready for his first moto. At the riders' meeting, details of the race day ahead are discussed by the referee and the riders.
Find everybody $5 that ain't here. I can probably save myself a lot of money on car fare home. But I can't blame you guys for that because you're here. And I appreciate you coming.
41 riders lined the gate for the start of the first 250 moto. As the pack headed down the sandy hill, it was Ron Lechien powering his Kawasaki into the lead. The crowd was going wild as the local favorite Joe Waddington was hot on his tracks. After several turns, Lechien had pulled away from Waddington, while O'Mara and Rick Johnson followed closely. Lechien, one of the most naturally talented riders of America today, was proving himself by pulling away from the pack. Joe Waddington was hanging on to second, while Johnny O'Mara and Rick Johnson were pushing steadily. Waddington, who had just been operated on 3 weeks earlier, was proving himself by running with the nation's best. O'Mara and Johnson had both found a hot line around Waddington. Rick Johnson and Bob Hanna, along with many of the other riders on the circuit, believe Southwick to be the best track in the United States. It's wide and rough, and they feel it's safe. Here's the slow motion shot of Johnny O'Mara coming through this sand corner. Notice how he gets over the back of the bike through the braking bumps for maximum traction in the rear wheel. Notice the momentum he carries out of this turn and the power shift as he tries to pull away from Rick Johnson. Rick makes some beautiful moves as he plows through this sandy course. Notice how Rick uses his legs here, turning the bike in the air over these jumps. And he moves toward the rear of the bike to get traction over these bumps. Moves toward the front in the turn to go over this camel hump. Notice the elbows up. Uses his legs to absorb the impact. He moves toward the rear and then back to the front to get traction through this turn. Here's a shot of Keith Bowen running 5th presently, and Bob Hanna working through the pack. Bob's really putting on a great race, and the crowd is really cheering him on. Meantime, Lachine burns up the track. Ron comes from El Cajon, California, and returns this season for his 2nd year as a Team Kawasaki member. Last year, a separated shoulder at the beginning of the season hampered his performance, but even with a string of 2nd and 3rd places, Lachine was able to place at 6th overall in the 250 Nationals and 5th in the Supercross Series. Many of the fans that came last year expected Rick Johnson to dominate like he did the year before, but Rick had broken some fingers in a Supercross race just a few weeks earlier and was having trouble keeping up. Waddington continues in 4th place, while most of the attention of the crowd had turned to Hanna, who had come from way back in the pack and was picking off riders one at a time at an incredible rate. Hanna moves in on a pack of riders here and passes Jeff Hicks in the process. As you can see here, Hanna's quite a bit back from the leaders, but he's putting on such an incredible pace that everyone wonders if he can catch up. Here Lachine moves in this sandy turn. Notice how he's got his legs sticking straight out for better balance, and then uses his clutch smoothly to power out. And then there's O'Mara, who never uses his clutch coming into the corner and just barely coming out. Here comes Hanna for his next victim, Dennis Hawthorne. Hanna says he'd pay to have 45-minute motos again. Hanna moves by Hawthorne and quickly tries to reel in Ray Somo. Meantime, Lachine powers through the turns, looking incredibly fast. Here comes O'Mara, still in 2nd, trying to keep back the somewhat wounded Rick Johnson. And here comes Hanna, looking like 10 years ago. The crowd just going crazy. May look a little bit wild, but putting on some awesome lap times. The roost off of Hannah's bike is incredible. No question about it. Bob Hannah's time involved in Suzuki's development program has certainly paid off. Here's a shot of Rick coming through the popper. Back slightly is Joe Waddington, and Hannah already moving in. The question was, would Hannah have enough time to catch up to Lachine, O'Mara, or Johnson? Notice how these riders, when they hit this camel hump, they pre-jump and never touch the top. It's fantastic riding there. Very smooth in the power. These riders just make this track flow, even though it's very, very bumpy. Hannah just keeps moving closer and closer to the leaders. Bob was definitely on the gas, plowing harder through the berms and flying farther off the jumps than anyone else. Here Johnny comes through this berm here, barely lets off, moves towards the back of the bike, and finds a good line through this sandy sweeper. The question is, has anybody bothered to ask what Bob Hannah is doing here? He's 30 years old. Most people would say he's over the hill. But it was like Bob had gone back 10 years in time, putting in some awesome riding. The crowd was definitely getting their money's worth. Bob Pertner blows this slapper off the track as he tries to make up time through these whoop-de-doos. Here comes Johnny, moving through this turn. Rick Johnson's just a bit back, but still close enough that if O'Mara makes a mistake, Johnson will be right there to take advantage of it. Lachine just keeps powering through the turns, pulling away from O'Mara and Johnson. Here Johnson's mechanic waves him on. As Hannah keeps reeling in the front runners. Johnson moves in a little bit closer to O'Mara. even with pain in his fingers. Johnson just keeps pouring it on. And where was Jeff Ward? Only 2 turns after the start, Jeff had managed to re-injure his ankle and was in a lot of pain. Jeff was running mid-pack. Lachine just keeps motoring on. In fact, just about ready to lap the 1985 national champion Jeff Ward. Johnson keeps after O'Mara, only a few seconds back, while Hanna closes in. '86 was a bad year for Ron. He'd even had thoughts of quitting motocross professionally. But by the beginning of this year, Ron had got his thoughts straight and was really looking good in this moto. He was ahead of the '86 champion Rick Johnson. Here Johnson moves by O'Mara. Looks like O'Mara was getting a bit tired. Early in the season, Johnny had injured himself in practice and was really just getting back on the ball. Meantime, Lachine working at the front with Johnson trying to catch up, and Hanna only a straightaway back from O'Mara. Lachine put on a perfect race this day, but Rick Johnson had different ideas. O'Mara hangs in fairly close to Johnson in third. Here's another shot of Rick coming through traffic. Notice how he always keeps his elbows up. Same for O'Mara. But then there's Bob Hanna closing in on everyone. And Joe Waddington, who finished 5th, put in a great ride. The local favorite had done himself proud. For Ron Lachine, it was a great first moto. Congratulations, Ron. At the start of the first 125 moto, it was Mickey Diamond taking a hole shot. Keith Turpin ran second, with Rick Ryan third. Diamond looked fantastic in practice and was really showing his abilities here in the Southwick sand. Going into this event, all of the top riders, Holland, Lease, Ryan, Diamond, and Kehoe, were within a few points of leading the national championship. A win here for Diamond could put him on top of the standings. With all the top riders behind him, Diamond has a good chance of moving up in the point standings. Early in the series, Diamond was plagued with a strange virus that was affecting his stamina. But as you can see here, Mickey was back in the same form that brought him the #1 plate in 1986. Watch Diamond as he gets his bike completely sideways off this jump, setting himself up for this turn. Diamond continues to pull away from the pack, putting in some machine-like lap times. Smooth and calculated. Notice his posture as he comes into this deep and bumpy corner, just barely tapping that clutch as he comes out, arcing that berm, making his factory Honda sing. Keith Turpin ran second briefly, but Daytona winner Rick Ryan quickly moved by and set after Diamond. Ryan is the only privateer ever to win a Supercross race and paid for his motorcycle himself. Oklahoma's Guy Cooper slides through this berm, hoping to catch the leaders. Guy won the first moto last year here at Southwick, and it looks like Eric Kehoe is keeping a close eye on Cooper's fender himself. As it stands now, we have first place Diamond in control, with Ryan second, Turpin third, Healy fourth, Cooper fifth, and Kehoe in sixth. Kehoe looks for a place to move around Cooper. Guy's private Honda here looks a bit underpowered compared to some of the factory bikes. The sand causes a lot of power loss, and therefore a strong motor really shows up on a sandy course like this one. This rider stops for a soil sample, but gets started again so he can move on to a different part of the track. Diamond continues to power through this sand, pulling away from Ryan at about a second per lap. Diamond has competed on the AMA National Circuit for only 3 years. The first year, he finished 7th in the 1984 500cc class, and in 1985 injuries kept him from getting back into the battle. But Mickey didn't quit there. He signed on with Honda and brought the Big Red the #1 plate for the 1986 season. Here Rick Ryan moves through the sandy sweeper as Eric Kehoe has moved into 4th place and is now working on Mike Healy. Diamond's riding very smoothly, very controlled and relaxed. Now he's beginning to move into lapped riders, and we'll have to use some smart moves to get by quickly. Eric Kehoe is putting on a great ride here. He's moved up to third and is now looking to move past Ryan for second. And where was points leader George Holland? Holland had got a bad start, and then halfway through the first lap, someone rammed him, and then he got back up and then went over the bars. Meantime, Diamond moves through this berm with incredible style. He zeroes in on this lapper, changing lines so he wouldn't lose any time. Bunny hops this camel hump and powers by. At the beginning of the 1986 season, many people thought that Mickey didn't stand a chance after racing 250s and 500s for most of his career. But Diamond proved them wrong, and as you can see here is a fine 125 specialist. What are the secrets to winning 125 national championships? Mickey says that probably the most important aspect of 125 racing is keeping your momentum up. You have to keep the bike going all the time. It's not like riding a 250 or a 500. 125s don't have the power to make up even for the smallest mistake. Diamond won this moto in style, while Rick Ryan hung on to second and Eric Kehoe finished third. Moving into the second moto of the 250 class, it was Johnny O'Mara taking a fantastic hole shot. Kawasaki mounted Mickey Kessler was putting on a great ride in second, but the crowd was going crazy because Bob Hanna was in third place. Bob finally got the start he needed, setting the stage for a fantastic race. O'Mara powers through this berm on his factory Suzuki, while Ron Lachine moves into fourth, with Jeff Ward and Rick Johnson close behind. With O'Mara out front and Kessler holding his second place, Lachine works hard to move by Hanna. O'Mara is a fantastic sand rider, and in top condition, he could pull this race off. Now Hanna moves in on Kessler, but Lachine puts a move on Hanna, but Hanna just comes back and pushes Lachine right off the jump. Now everyone's screaming for Hanna. And in no time at all, O'Mara misses a berm and Hanna gets out front. Hanna recalled later, "I might have bumped into him, but it was nothing intentional. I'm out here to race today, and this is nothing compared to the way the Jammer and I used to do it." Jimmy Weinert, the former 500 national champion, was on hand to watch Hanna. After the first moto, he asked Hannah why he wasn't bumping into anybody. Apparently, Hannah decided to take Weinert's advice. Hannah just kept motoring on, pushing his factory Suzuki to the limits. Easily the winningest rider in motocross history, Hannah has swamped the record books with 29 Supercross wins, including 3 Supercross championships, 27 250 national wins, including 2 250 national championships, 8 125 national wins, and the list goes on and on. With Hannah out front and pulling away, the question would be, could he take the overall for the day's event? First moto winner Ron Lechien had developed stomach cramps from drinking too much water between motos and eventually dropped off the leader's pace. While Hannah was out front, O'Mara was slowing a bit and had Ward and Johnson climbing all over him. When the halfway signal was given by the flagger, Rick Johnson moved over to the right-hand side and tried to pass Ward down the sweeper. He gets beside him, but Ward shuts him off. Meantime, Hannah floats through these bumps and never misses a beat. Soon O'Mara had lost his drive, and both Ward and Johnson had motored by. Hannah's development work was really paying off, as the Suzuki handled perfectly through the soft Southwick sand. Hannah was born in Lancaster, California. He received his first motorcycle from his father at age 7. By age 11, he entered and won his first race. He turned pro at the age of 16 and won his first national championship by the time he was 18. Hannah's been racing pro races for over 10 years, and he certainly wasn't going to give up this moto. At this point, with Ward ahead of Johnson, Hannah had the chance for the overall, but the 250cc points leader put an end to all that by passing Ward and settling into second. When asked what it takes to be a good sand rider, Hannah says you have to be strong. You need to keep your knees tight against the tank and your feet on the pegs. You have to keep your butt off the seat, stand up. Cornering is the big thing. Don't drive it in and stop, ride it in and get it on the gas before the corner is even there. Get over the bumps and do your braking way early. You have to get back on the throttle right away. The sand really kills your speed, so you use the front brake less than usual. You have to flow with the bumps and keep your momentum up through the turns. There's no doubt about it. Bob still knows how to ride a motorcycle. Even at 30 years old, Hannah is still the highest paid motocross racer in the world. Suzuki pays him $500,000 a year to ride like this, and he's proving himself here at Southwick. And the fans are just loving it. Bob's been working very hard on the RM development. He says next year's bike will be worthy of anybody, and the 89s will be even better. We're small over there, not as much money as Honda, not as many people, but they're good people though. I'm going to ride a couple of GPs this year and maybe a whole world championship next year. Maybe to develop the bike, but maybe to win it. But the main thing is to make sure that the bike is perfect, so our production bikes will be the best. This production rule is a bunch of baloney. I've got stuff here that would kick butt. I can't use it because of AMA's production rule. We can't do any race testing. I've got frames, gas tanks, gearboxes. I've got all this stuff and I can't use it. The people want to see trick bikes, not this production stuff. Much to the delight of the crowd, Hannah just kept motoring his Suzuki, pushing his motorcycle to the limits. The last time that Hannah put his machine into the victory circle was in 1986, where he won the 250 Grand Prix at Unadilla, New York. Notice how Bob keeps his elbows up constantly, standing over the rough sections and keeping his head over the front of the bike. Going into turns, he keeps his rear end over the back fender. Johnson uses the same technique with the elbows up, standing, going into the turns, waits late to sit down in the apex of the corner. Hannah continues his 15-second lead over Johnson, moving beautifully through these rough sections, the bike flowing perfectly. Comes Hannah down the downhill, slides through this berm. This guy is awesome. Hannah's bike working perfectly through these bumps. The 2 laps to go sign comes out as Hannah looks forward to a moto victory. And here comes Rick Johnson for second, knowing that he's got the overall wrapped up with 2 seconds. Hannah just barely missing out with a 4-1 finish, taking second overall. But the crowd definitely got their money's worth. They screamed the whole way as Hannah puts himself in the victory circle. The white flag comes out. Hannah continues to move quickly through the Southwick sand. Definitely one of the most beautiful tracks in the world. Hannah takes a smooth line through this sweeper. There's a shot of Ron Lachine. Ron finished first the first moto, but ended up 9th on the second round. Still good enough for 4th overall. As Hannah makes his final lap, he waves to the crowd as they scream and yell. Bob Hannah was definitely the man of the hour. Rick Johnson comes in second, while Jeff Ward made a great ride to 3rd place. Now we move on to the second 125 moto. It'll be the final moto of the day. It's Rick Ryan with a clean hole shot. Guy Cooper tries to move on the inside, but Ryan powers through the sand and takes the lead. Keith Turpin moved into 2nd place briefly, but both Cooper and Diamond moved past. Diamond makes his move on Cooper and then sets after Rick Ryan. Rick Ryan is known of one of the best starters on the circuit, and is also claimed by many riders to be one of the hardest riders to pass. But Ryan picks up a very fast pace here for the opening laps. But the factory rider, Diamond, doesn't seem to have much problem keeping up. Diamond had just recovered from a bout with a illness similar to mononucleosis. Even though he was in poor health, Diamond still managed to finish 7th in the season opener at Gainesville, Florida. His doctors advised him not to ride the second event at Hangtown, but he did it anyway and managed a 4th place finish, keeping himself well within the reach of a championship. If Diamond could keep his momentum up and put in another moto win, he could put himself ahead of George Holland for the championship lead. But Rick Ryan was putting on a great race here, and Diamond had to do his best to keep up. Ryan himself is a fantastic sand rider. He made $17,000 by winning the Daytona Supercross. Ryan didn't have a sponsor for the '87 season, so he borrowed $35,000. He bought a truck, he bought the bikes and the parts, and then went out and started winning races. Yes, he paid back the $35,000, and he put himself into the black. But it's those top finishes that put him there. Guy Cooper's putting on a great race here in 3rd. He has quite a few riders behind him, putting on a good show for the spectators. Up front, Diamond tries to move inside of Ryan, pulls ahead down this bumpy sweeper, but Ryan moves by in this berm. Diamond seems to have all his strength back and continues to push the speedy Ryan. Notice how these riders get over the back of the bike when they come into turns. They're able to brake much harder and keep the rear wheel from locking up. A definite asset that many amateur riders don't know about. Watch as these riders stand through this bumpy section, over the jumps, through the turns. And here comes Diamond making a pass on Ryan, but Ryan moves through the inside and cuts off Diamond. Mickey retaliates by passing Ryan in the woods and pulls away for the win. Soon Ryan began to tire, and both Eric Kehoe and Jeff Leask passed Ryan for second and third. Mickey won both motos handily, while Eric Kehoe went 3-2 for second overall. Ryan finished third with a 2-5 finish. Yes, Honda did take the overalls in both classes, but it was Bob Hanna that stole the show. Moving on to the fourth round of the 125 and 250 National Championship, a large crowd was on hand, filling